Usually I turn the YouTube on before I turn the VTF on. For some reason today I just did the opposite. Which that might make more sense to actually do it that way. Turn the VTF on first. Alright, good afternoon, everybody. The last time I was on this computer, I got some negative feedback on the YouTube sound. So I worked with the tech team a little bit today, but I didn't notice anything wrong. So hopefully that works okay. Whoa, I hear myself. I do not like hearing myself. Turn that off. Nothing worse than hearing yourself. Alright, but I guess that means it worked. I just heard myself and I sounded just fine. Cool. Alright, let's jump in. I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of FINRA. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Position disclosures looking light. I'm trying to wind down on positions in front of going away for a couple of weeks, which is the goal. So I'm trying really hard to not be too aggressive on any trading or anything right now. It was also a really boring day, so that made things easy. Today was the first day in August I felt that actually felt like we were in August. And it wasn't even too boring. I know the IWM was like really flatlined for a lot of today. But the Qs gave us a little bit of action. Some early on weakness in the Qs was exciting. When we broke the inside day to the downside, that was a little bit exciting. We broke the Maribozu low, that negative Maribozu low by a little bit at a certain point. So the Qs here aren't looking too great. I'm seeing Pat out of the corner of my eye telling me that the Dow gave a new all-time high close today. So that's interesting. It's not a great looking candle today on the Dow with a bit of an upside tail there at those new highs. So we'll see if it's able to give continuation or not. I don't look at the Dow too often, but new all-time highs in the Dow. Be excited. Why not? Be excited. But the Dow only represents 30 companies. It's not really enough. SPYs here are basically sitting just in front of those all-time highs. They are making a bullish consolidation in front of it. The S&P looks pretty decent, to be honest. We had that negative Maribozu on Thursday, which was our correction candle, an inside day with some decent strength on Friday, and then today we actually were able to get a little bit above Thursday and Friday's high, but we couldn't close up there. The Qs I already mentioned real briefly, but let's take another look because this is the interesting one to me. The interesting one to me right now is the Qs and the IWM. Well, it's almost always that way, I guess, that the interesting one is the Qs and the IWM, and then the SPYs are kind of somewhere in the middle, right? So I guess it's not that unusual. But the Q daily chart here is a little bit interesting with the negative Maribozu on Thursday, which was a day to take notice of, bearish engulfing candle. But at the same time, all it did was bring us from $10 plus of extension where we sat for 5-6 days down to equilibrium. Friday, we had Jackson Hole. Jackson Hole gave a lot of rotation and relative strength back to the IWM. Keep in mind the Russell had been lagging, not in a big way because correlations increased starting a few weeks ago with the big Monday crash. But even with the increased correlations, the Qs were leading, the IWM was lagging. On Friday, when Jerome Powell took his victory lap and basically said that the cuts are coming, the IWM outperformed, and that's more or less expected when you're getting rate cuts at this point in time. The big question still in my mind, though, is to what degree, if any, is that priced in? I would expect that it's well priced in at this point because we're pricing in a 35% chance of a 50 basis point cut still, or 33% chance of a 50 basis point cut in September. So I would think that that's more than priced into the IWM, but all the same, the Russell took it in stride, was really, really relatively strong, broke out, and interestingly enough, the Russell never got extremely extended at all into this up move to the upside, whereas the SPYs and the Qs we certainly know did. And it was really only on Friday for the first time, maybe not even Friday, really it was only the gap up this morning after Friday's action that brought the Russell to getting close to extreme extension, which this morning I said would be kind of starting at 223, and then 225 is a really big resistance. So I thought that the space between 223 and 225 could be an interesting spot for a cute short in the IWM today if it got up there. Even though I'm kind of expecting the relative strength overall in the IWM to continue to exist. It's like we always talk about those periods of extreme extension, even if you're looking for trend continuation, or in this case, that rotation continuation, market's usually telling you that you need to pause. We couldn't quite get up to that 223 today. 222.50 was the high, so I didn't end up really doing anything aggressive with the IWM at all. But that chart compared to the Q chart is interesting because the IWM picked up the baton of relative strength as the Qs have weakened out. Negative Maribozu engulfing candle on Thursday down to the ADMA. Inside day on Friday for Jackson Hole. Technically, it's an inside and down today, though we didn't get too much of a push. I kind of wanted to see if we could get the inside and down and get below the negative Maribozu low, if we could get a quicker push down to 470, down to the 21 EMA. But, you know, the market broke that low and still managed to hold in well, yet closed at lows. So we'll see. I think that there's something to be said for this rotation trade having some degree of continuation, especially as we see that gamma number, and we'll probably get an update on that tomorrow morning. We see that gamma number really beginning to increase again. I would expect that that's what can create the rotation. At the same time, I can't help but wonder if they really continue to whack these Qs down, if at a certain point, you know, whacking the Qs down causes you to whack the S&P down, and then if you're hitting the S&P lower at a certain point, that could kind of break that positive gamma a little bit and then begin to increase correlations again on the way down. So I do have that in the back of my mind. This is one thing that I forgot to talk to the tech guy about. For some reason, Bill, I see you just posted something in the VTF. For some reason, I've been... Oh, there it is. It worked this time. I was about to say, I'm just getting like a weird little image sign. I'm not actually seeing the images that people show, but I see it now. Today was the lowest equity volume of the year. Today just officially went down as the lightest volume session of 2024. Full trading sessions. We're not including the half days. With 9.42 billion shares trading across all U.S. exchanges versus a year-to-date daily average of 11.54. So really, really light trading session today. Again, we're coming into the doldrums of August, so it's not surprising to see that. It's just surprising, if anything, that August has been as wild as it's been so far. So anyway, curious to see what happens here with the difference between the IWM and the Qs. The IWM candle is a little bit interesting today because it did close on lows, but for the most part, it was a really tight trading session, and this could have been worse. You could have had like a push-through failure, really back through Friday's closing price to retrace a larger percentage of Friday's candle, and that didn't happen. So the IWM held in really well. The Qs gave us some opening weakness that was interesting, but never gave any major follow-through. And now we'll see if anything's able to happen in front of NVIDIA, or if we just have to wait for NVIDIA on Wednesday or not. And it's really pretty much all that I've got. We had a few names and sectors on the watch list. XLE's improving a little bit, but it's kind of tough to chase a day two. Oxy 58, I like the 58 level, but we said maybe don't buy high in Oxy right now. It'd be great if it could sit around that area for a little while and set up. Looked at XPEV, even though most of China was really weak off PDD, XPEV had that big insider buy to see if it gives some continuation above 7.25. It worked, I think, in a very small way. But yeah, nothing too much to talk about, I think, across the board. So I don't have that much, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have. So feel free to throw them out there. Otherwise, it's going to be a quicker meeting. Not seeing anything in the VTF yet, so feel free to put up. We got one from Rex. Could you talk a little bit about the Friday trading session? At 10 a.m. on Friday, the speech led the market to break out the 5-minute chart consolidation. Sure. So Friday was exciting for a little while. Friday at 10 a.m. So that's right here. That's when the meeting got started. You can see the spies really broke out, the Qs broke out, and the IWM really broke out and led higher. I was pretty much immediately calling for, before I read the rest of your question, looking for a fade in the Qs. I just didn't believe that move in the Qs. One, because it's priced in, but two, because interest rates getting cut should help the IWM, not the Qs. That's what we've consistently seen. Any weakness that's been coming into the Qs at all this year seems like it's happening when we have a reason to believe that the sectors that should benefit from interest rate cuts can catch a bid, which means that money comes out of the things where all the cash has been, which has basically been the Qs. So I called for fading the Qs. I remember, embarrassingly, my radio on the VTF was turned off and I forgot to turn it back on. And I don't know how long I was off for, but the short through this low here at 1040 was something I was really pushing for and caught that move. So I was like aggressively trying to short the Qs while at the same time saying you could buy the IWM almost as a pairs trade, long IWM short Qs. And the spies were a little bit in the middle, a little bit all over the place like usual. Anyway, let me read the rest of your question. At 10 a.m., the speech led the market to break out on the 5-minute chart. So you got involved in ASTS at 10 a.m. Okay, through the inside day high with T's relative strength intraday before the 10 a.m. speech, assuming you mean this stock, with all indices, with the relative strength intraday before the 10 a.m. speech, with all indices breaking out on a 5-minute bull flag. I thought that ASTS could give some follow-through intraday. Could you give me some feedback on it? Sure. So I don't know this ASTS very well, would be the first thing that I would say. I know that this has come up on our radar a lot recently as a high flyer to pay attention to. And I actually kind of like today's candle to watch this tomorrow versus today's low. But I don't think I've ever traded the stock, and therefore I don't really know what to classify this as. Does it trade more with the Qs, the IWM? Does it trade more with growth? Does it trade more with ARC? I don't really know what to classify this as. And that would be one piece of information that I would want to pay attention to, first of all. I like your thought process of, hey, relative strength, market's breaking out, let me go after the strength. I also like the chart pattern. I like that thought process. The other thing, though, to keep in mind is that once you get, like, breaking economic news, everything that was trading in a certain way beforehand can easily change. You know, if all of a sudden, let's say the Qs were strong, I don't remember if they were or were not before 10. They weren't that strong, but they were kind of bull flagging and holding in. All of a sudden, after 10, when that news hits, the relative strength, relative weakness can change if the story changes. So I don't know if the degree to the effect that would have on ASTS, again, because I don't know the name well. But that's, like I was just explaining, how I was able to have some confidence in trying to short the Qs after 10 on Friday while not wanting to do anything with the IWM. So if a STS has any correlation to the Qs, I'm not surprised to see it fail. It's kind of the degree of the feedback I can give you. Outside of that, I like the chart pattern, I like the thought process, so I don't dislike the trade, and hope that pop was big enough to get a cover, but it looks like, you know, sell a little bit, but it looks like it probably wasn't. So pretty much all I got for you. Tracy on Starbucks. I like Starbucks here. It looks great. This would have been one to buy earlier today, because so $96 is technically the breakout of this bull flag-ish pattern that it's been building. The ADMA caught up to the base of the flag, so that's typically when you get continuation. I'm not going to love this on a day 3 through 96, though, unless there's big volume confirmation or new news that comes out. So overall, how does Starbucks look to me? It looks great. And if I was swinging it, and if I was already in it, I'd be very pleased with how this thing traded today and how it closed right at 96 or right below 96. If I'm not already in it, I still like the chart pattern, and 96 is technically the buy spot, but I think that 96 is going to be tough to buy tomorrow on like a day 3. If you're not already in it, you probably want it to actually rest for a day or two in front of 96, maybe give an inside day tomorrow, let this moving average catch up a little bit more so that you're not chasing a day 3. You can kind of reset the numbers there, reset the pattern, and then get continuation. Thanks for the question, Tracy. Over in YouTube, nice job there, Uvixi Bull. From Cyril, what are your thoughts on PDD short off the open? Other Chinese stocks, JD, Baba, gap down too, but they bounced. I like that PDD short for momentum off the open because of how many players are trapped in this. This was once 110 is a really big level. That's a spot to pay attention to. It could have tried to hold that 110. They could have tried to bounce it off that. But I like when you can really find a name where everyone gets trapped because of a situation, and then you're combining that with a pretty bad earnings report, where that makes this 110, I think, actionable in both directions. You could have attempted to buy 110 off the open, but if it breaks, and it broke very quickly, you could be looking to short through that level as well for the momentum freak out because everybody's out of the money trade and they're having to puke out the stock. So it's definitely a little bit more of a momentum style trade than I like to take because your 80 EMA is nowhere close on the 5-minute chart to catching up to that high. But it's a trade that I like the idea and the concept of as well. And it seems like they pull JD and Baba down more than anything else. So seeing those things bounce back, because the PDD business, even though they do e-commerce in China that competes with Japan and Alibaba, the strength in PDD here is related to a business that JD and Baba are not involved with, which is namely the U.S. marketplace. It's Temu, right? That's what it's called, Temu. It's Temu. So you can see PDD trade very independently to a JD and a Baba, and we've seen that. We've seen that for a while now. We've seen that for this year. PDD has been so much stronger than JD and Baba because of its U.S. presence. But I think that there's actually inherently problems with that presence in the United States and with the business model that they're implementing. So not surprised to see that get hit down. From Bill over in the VTF. You speaking about price as news comes out makes me think of this. Blue line from the FOMC minute release 8:21. Opening of the 14 candle. 8:21. Opening of the 14 candle. Well, that's still been really a range area that we're still very much in. Yeah, always worth it to pay attention to those starting points for when news comes out. And that's through today. That's interesting. We kind of closed right in that same zone, right in that same spot. Thank you. Back over to the YouTube. Which earnings this week you are watching except for NVIDIA? I'll be watching Chewy, SentinelOne, because I trade those names very often, though I'm not in them right now. And probably won't get back in them on their reports, but I'll definitely be watching them. And Salesforce and NVIDIA. Those are the 4 names I'm interested in for earnings this week. Anything else, folks? Anything else, gang? Otherwise, it'll be a very quick one today. Just because, again, it was one of the more boring trading sessions we've had in a while. You know, Bill just gave us the stat. Today was the lowest volume trading day of the year. Lowest volume full trading day of the year. So not a whole ton to chat about. But I'm always happy to answer questions. I had nowhere to be. Going once. Going twice. Sold. All right. We'll wrap it up there. I hope everybody had a decent day. Have a wonderful evening. I will see you all tomorrow.